Welcome to Hidden Treasures in Your Pocket, where we explore the fascinating world of rare coins that might be hiding in plain sight. Today, we're diving into three seemingly ordinary Lincoln pennies that command extraordinary prices: the 1975, 1985, and 1989 US 1-cent pieces. While most copper pennies jingling in your change might be worth exactly 1 cent, these specific issues could be worth thousands. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies gathering dust on your shelf, you might want to take a closer look. One of these valuable rarities could be funding your next vacation or even paying off your car. Let's begin with the 1975 Lincoln penny, a coin that represents one of the most intriguing minting errors in modern American coinage. The year 1975 was significant in American numismatic history, though not for reasons the U.S. Mint would celebrate. During this period, the Philadelphia Mint was working overtime, producing billions of pennies to meet the nation's economic demands. This mass production created the perfect storm for some extraordinary errors to slip through quality control. The most valuable 1975 penny variation is the double die obverse. Now, for those newer collectors joining us, a double die error occurs during the hub and die creation process, not during the striking of the coin itself. When the die is being made, it receives multiple impressions from the hub. If there's even the slightest misalignment between these impressions, you get doubling in the final die, which then transfers to every coin it strikes. With the 1975 double die penny, this doubling is most noticeable in the date and the word Liberty. What makes this error particularly fascinating is how pronounced the doubling appears. Under even modest magnification, you can clearly see the doubling in the digits of the date, especially in the 5 and 7, and in the letters of Liberty. The doubling also appears in Lincoln's profile, particularly around his ear and bow tie. It's as if Abraham Lincoln decided to move slightly between photographs, creating a ghost-like double image. Unlike some other double dies throughout history, the 1975 version is exceptionally rare. While approximately 9.6 billion pennies were minted in Philadelphia that year, numismatic experts estimate that only a few thousand double die examples escaped into circulation. Many were discovered shortly after entering circulation by alert collectors who recognized the error, but others undoubtedly remain unidentified in collections and change jars across America. The market value of these coins varies dramatically based on condition. A circulated example showing moderate wear might fetch between $100 and $300. However, in uncirculated condition, what we call mint state, prices climb significantly. A well-preserved MS 63 on the 70-point Sheldon scale can command $500 to $700, while premium examples graded MS 65 or higher have sold for $2,000 to $3,500 at major auctions. One particularly pristine specimen, graded MS 67 read by PCGS, sold for an astonishing $8,500 at a heritage auction in 2018. What's particularly interesting about the 1975 double die penny is that it represents one of the last major double die errors discovered before the Mint implemented more sophisticated minting technologies. The U.S. Mint began transitioning to single-squeeze hubbing in the late 1970s, which dramatically reduced the occurrence of double die errors. This makes the 1975 double die penny something of a swan song for this classic type of minting error. There's also a fascinating story behind the discovery of these errors. Unlike some minting mistakes that were caught relatively quickly, the 1975 double die pennies entered circulation before the error was widely recognized. The first documented discovery came from a Massachusetts collector who noticed the doubling while examining rolls of uncirculated pennies purchased from his local bank. By the time the numismatic community became widely aware of the error, these pennies had already dispersed throughout the northeastern United States, creating a minor treasure hunt as collectors scrambled to check their change and penny jars. Another interesting aspect of the 1975 double die is its place in the hierarchy of Lincoln cent errors. While it doesn't command the astronomical prices of the famous 1955 double die cent, which can sell for over $50,000 in top condition, or the 1969 S double die, which can exceed $100,000, it represents a more accessible trophy coin for serious collectors. It's rare enough to be valuable and exciting, Yet enough examples exist that dedicated collectors have a realistic chance of acquiring one. When hunting for a 1975 double-die penny, condition is crucial, but so is authenticity. Unfortunately, as values have increased, so have attempts to create counterfeit examples. The most common deception involves taking regular 1975 pennies and using mechanical means to create artificial doubling. These machine-doubled coins might fool novice collectors, but experienced numismatists can easily distinguish them from genuine hub-and-die doubling. In genuine doubled dies, the doubling appears on raised design elements and shows consistent displacement. Machine doubling, by contrast, often shows irregular shelf-like extensions and flatness to the doubled areas. The copper composition of the 1975 penny adds another dimension to its collectability. These coins contain 95% copper and 5% zinc, making their intrinsic metal value worth more than their face value, especially with copper prices having risen substantially since the 1970s. The U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny in 1982, switching to a primarily zinc composition with just a thin copper coating. This makes pre-1982 pennies, including the 1975 issue, worth collecting even without errors simply for their copper content. Beyond the double die variety, there are other 1975 penny variations worth noting. Some collectors specialize in finding examples with exceptional strike quality, showing full detail in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks. Others look for pennies with outstanding natural toning that develops over decades of proper storage. While not as valuable as the double die, these condition rarities still command premiums above their face value. For those of you watching who might be inspired to check your coin jars, here's a practical tip. A strong magnifying glass or coin loupe is essential for identifying the 1975 double die. Look specifically at the date and the word Liberty. The doubling should be obvious even under 5x magnification. And remember, this isn't a slight shift. The doubling is pronounced enough that it can be seen clearly once you know what you're looking for. The 1975 penny reminds us that sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't the most obvious ones. In an era when collectors were focused on silver dollars and gold coins, these humble copper pennies with their manufacturing quirks have proven to be sleeper investments, growing steadily in value year after year while hiding in plain sight. Whether you're an established collector or someone who just discovered the fascinating world of numismatics, the hunt for these elusive error coins offers both the thrill of the chase and the potential for a significant find. Moving on to our second featured rarity, the 1985 Lincoln penny presents another compelling chapter in the story of modern American coinage errors. While at first glance it might seem like just another ordinary cent from the Reagan era, certain 1985 pennies harbor secrets that make them immensely valuable to discerning collectors. The 1985 penny's most significant variety is the elusive double-ear Lincoln. Unlike the double die we discussed with the 1975 penny, this error has a different origin altogether. The double-ear variety shows what appears to be a second ear on Lincoln's profile, creating an unusual and immediately noticeable distortion. This resulted from die damage or a grease-filled die that created an abnormal raised area resembling a second ear on the president's profile. What makes this variety particularly fascinating is its scarcity. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 5.4 billion pennies in 1985, but only a tiny fraction, experts estimate fewer than 1,000, exhibit this distinctive double-ear characteristic. The error wasn't discovered until the late 1980s, by which time most 1985 pennies had already entered circulation and experienced wear, making mint state examples exceedingly rare. When examining a potential double-ear 1985 penny, you'll want to focus on the area just behind Lincoln's existing ear. In genuine examples, there's a distinct raised area that clearly resembles an additional ear. This isn't subtle. It stands out prominently under even modest magnification. The effect creates an almost surreal appearance, as if Lincoln had been caught turning his head in a photograph, creating a motion blur. The market has responded enthusiastically to these rare pennies. A circulated example in fine to very fine condition might command $200 to $400, while an uncirculated specimen can easily reach $1,000 to $2,500. The record sale for a 1985 double-ear penny occurred in 2019 when a PCGS-certified MS. 67 red example sold at a specialized auction for an astonishing $6,750. Not bad for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. This sale highlighted the growing interest in modern minting errors among serious collectors who previously might have focused exclusively on classic 19th century issues. Beyond the double-ear variety, the 1985 penny holds additional interest for collectors of mint errors. Some examples display significant off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly positioned during the striking process. While not as rare as the double-ear variety, these off-center strikes, especially those showing 50% or more displacement while still displaying the complete date, can sell for $50 to $150 depending on condition and the degree of off-centering. There's also an intriguing historical aspect to 1985 Lincoln cents. This was a period when the U.S. Mint was still adapting to the relatively new composition of the Lincoln cent. Remember, just 3 years earlier in 1982, the Mint had transitioned from the traditional 95% copper composition to the current copper-plated zinc format. This transition period saw various quality control issues as the Mint refined its processes for the new composition. The 1985 pennies were part of this adjustment phase, which may explain the higher incidence of errors during this period. Another compelling aspect of the 1985 penny is what collectors call the transitional error. A small number of 1985 pennies were mistakenly struck on the older 95% copper planchets instead of the new copper-plated zinc ones. These transitional errors are incredibly rare and valuable. You can identify them primarily by weight. A genuine copper 1985 penny will weigh approximately 3.11 grams, compared to the standard 2.5 grams of copper-plated zinc cents. When authenticated, these transitional errors can sell for $1,000 to $3,000 depending on condition. The 1985 penny also presents us with an interesting preservation challenge. The copper-plated zinc composition is notorious for developing problems over time. When the thin copper coating is breached, the underlying zinc can deteriorate rapidly, leading to bubbling, corrosion, and eventual disintegration, a condition collectors have nicknamed zinc rot. This makes truly pristine examples of 1985 pennies increasingly difficult to find with each passing year, potentially increasing the value of well-preserved specimens. For collectors interested in die varieties beyond the famous double ear, the 1985 penny offers several other collectible die cracks and cuts. Die cracks occur when the die used to strike coins begins to fail, creating raised lines on the finished coins. Cuds are more dramatic failures where a piece of the die breaks away entirely, resulting in a distinctive raised blob on the coin. Significant die cracks or cuds on 1985 pennies, especially those affecting major design elements, can add substantial premiums to otherwise common coins. There's a fascinating story about the discovery of the 1985 double-ear Lincoln that speaks to the democratic nature of coin collecting. The variety was first identified not by a professional numismatist, but by a teenage collector in Ohio who noticed the abnormality while sorting through rolls of pennies from his part-time job as a cashier. He initially kept his discovery quiet, allowing him to find several more examples before publishing his findings in a regional coin club newsletter. This discovery story reminds us that significant numismatic finds aren't restricted to auction houses and dealer inventories. They can be made by anyone with a keen eye and basic knowledge. When seeking a 1985 double-ear penny, authentication is crucial. As values have climbed, various deceptive practices have emerged. Some unscrupulous sellers have attempted to create fake double ears by adding material to regular 1985 pennies or by manipulating images in online listings. Professional authentication from services like PCGS or NGC is strongly recommended before investing significant sums in these varieties. The cost of certification, typically $20 to $30 for modern coins, is minimal compared to the assurance it provides and the premium it adds to genuine examples. The 1985 penny serves as a perfect example of why modern coins deserve attention from serious collectors. While many focus exclusively on classic issues, these contemporary rarities offer accessibility, the thrill of discovery, and significant potential appreciation. They represent opportunities for collectors of modest means to acquire genuinely rare coins that may become tomorrow's classics. And for those who inherited collections or simply saved their change over the decades, they offer the exciting possibility that overlooked treasures might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be recognized and appreciated. Finally, we arrive at our third featured rarity, the 1989 Lincoln penny, a coin that perfectly demonstrates how small variations can create significant value in modern coinage. The late 1980s were a time of relative stability for U.S. coin production, with minting processes becoming increasingly automated and precise. Yet, even in this era of technological advancement, fascinating anomalies managed to slip through the mint's quality control systems. The most coveted variety of the 1989 penny is the elusive close AM reverse. This subtle, yet significant variety requires a bit of background to appreciate fully. On standard Lincoln cents from this period, the letters A and M in America on the reverse side have a distinct space between them. However, on the rare close AM variety, these two letters nearly touch each other. This tiny difference isn't a random error, but rather stems from an interesting quirk in the U.S. Mint's production timeline. The close positioning of the AM letters was actually intended for future penny designs beginning in the 1990s. Somehow, dies with this modified reverse design were mistakenly used to strike a small number of 1989 pennies, creating an unintended preview of a design that wasn't officially scheduled for release until years later. It's like finding a few advance copies of a book with its final cover design when the publisher had only authorized prototype copies. For experienced collectors, spotting a genuine 1989 close AM penny requires careful examination. Beyond the primary diagnostic feature of the nearly touching A and M, there are secondary characteristics to confirm authenticity. The FG initials, representing designer Frank Gasparo, appear slightly closer to the Lincoln Memorial Building, and the designer's initials themselves appear slightly sharper compared to regular 1989 pennies. These subtle differences help authenticate genuine examples and distinguish them from counterfeit attempts. In terms of rarity, the 1989 close AM penny is truly exceptional. Numismatic researchers estimate that fewer than 500 genuine examples exist across all conditions, making it significantly rarer than many classic American coin rarities. Most examples were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, lacking a mint mark, though a tiny number of San Francisco minted proofs with the close AM reverse have been documented, commanding even higher premiums. The market value of these coins reflects their extreme scarcity. A circulated 1989 close AM in average condition might fetch $1,000 to $2,000, while uncirculated examples certified by major grading services regularly command $5,000 to $10,000. The auction record was set in 2012 when a PCGS-graded MS-67 red example sold for an incredible $23,500. More recently, in a private transaction, a dealer reportedly paid $18,750 for an MS-66 example to fill a client's registry set. These figures represent some of the highest prices ever paid for post-1982 zinc composition Lincoln cents. What makes the 1989 close AM penny particularly intriguing is the mystery surrounding its creation. The U.S. Mint has never officially acknowledged or explained how these unauthorized dies entered production 3 years before their intended use. Some numismatists speculate that it was simply a case of dies being prepared in advance and accidentally released to the production floor. Others suggest it might have been a deliberate test of the new design that was inadvertently mixed with regular production. This lingering mystery adds a layer of intrigue that enhances the variety's appeal among serious collectors. Beyond the famous close AM variety, 1989 pennies offer other collectible variations. The year saw a higher than usual incidence of striking errors, particularly off-center strikes and clipped planchets. Some specialists attribute this to the high production demands placed on the mint that year. Over 7 billion pennies were struck between the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, creating opportunities for quality control oversights. There's also the fascinating category of 1989 pennies struck on wrong planchets. A small number have been discovered struck on dime-sized planchets, creating unusual-looking undersized pennies. Even rarer are 1989 pennies struck on nickel planchets, creating oversized specimens that immediately stand out in a collection. When authenticated, these wrong planchet errors can sell for $1,500 to $4,000 depending on condition and the specific nature of the error. The 1989 penny also holds historical significance as it coincided with momentous changes in world history. As these coins were circulating in Americans' pockets, the Berlin Wall fell and the Cold War was drawing to a close. There's something poetically fitting about discovering valuable treasures hidden in coins from a year that represented such dramatic global transformation. Some collectors specifically seek 1989 pennies as historical mementos of this pivotal year, creating additional demand beyond the era varieties. For those interested in conservation, the 1989 penny presents the same preservation challenges we discussed with the 1985 issue. Its zinc composition makes it susceptible to deterioration if exposed to moisture or adverse environmental conditions. Collectors serious about preserving these coins should store them in inert holders with stable environmental conditions. The copper plating on these coins can also tone in interesting ways over time, with some developing attractive rainbow patterns that enhance their appeal to collectors of toned coins. Authentication remains paramount when dealing with 1989 close AM pennies. As values have climbed, sophisticated counterfeiting attempts have emerged. Some involve physically altering the spacing between the A and M on regular 1989 pennies, while others involve altering the dates on genuine close AM cents from the 1990s. Professional authentication from recognized services is essential before making significant investments in these varieties. The modest cost of certification provides valuable insurance against acquiring misidentified or altered specimens. What I find particularly inspiring about the 1989 close AM penny is how it exemplifies the democratic nature of coin collecting. These valuable rarities weren't immediately sequestered in dealers' safes or collectors' cabinets. They entered circulation just like any other penny, giving everyone an equal opportunity to discover them. There are documented cases of sharp-eyed collectors finding them in bank rolls as recently as 2010, more than 2 decades after they were minted. This creates the tantalizing possibility that undiscovered examples still circulate today, waiting for observant collectors to rescue them from obscurity. For beginning collectors interested in hunting for the 1989 close AM variety, roll searching remains a viable strategy, though admittedly a long shot. A more practical approach involves examining any 1989 pennies already in your collection or inherited from relatives. The key is having proper magnification, a 5x to 10x loupe or digital microscope, and comparing the spacing between the A and M with known regular examples. The difference, while subtle, becomes apparent once you know exactly what to look for. These 3 pennies also demonstrate why coin collecting remains such an enduring and accessible hobby. Unlike many other collectibles that require substantial investment to acquire significant pieces, these remarkable coins entered circulation at face value. They passed through countless hands, rode in countless pockets, and sat in countless cash registers before their true significance was recognized. And even today, decades after their creation, the possibility remains that undiscovered examples await detection. So before dismissing that jar of change on your dresser or those old penny rolls in your drawer, consider taking a closer look. Armed with knowledge, patience, and perhaps a decent magnifying glass, you might just discover that one of these small copper treasures has been hiding in plain sight all along. Happy hunting, and until next time, keep your eyes on your change. History and fortune might be hiding right there in your pocket.